Bonjour. Bonjour les amis. Bienvenue à Paris. Could we do a quick sound check, please? Could you let me know if you can hear me okay? That would be very helpful. Bonjour, bienvenue. Can you hear me all right? Is the sound okay? I hope so. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Christine. You're the first message I've seen. Bonjour et bienvenue à Paris, mes amis. Welcome to my new neighborhood, newish neighborhood, the 17th arrondissement. I am standing outside one of a few museums we have in this great neighborhood, one of the smallest ones in Paris. Though I'm not sure it's that small actually. It's called the Musée Nacional Jean-Jacques. It is dedicated to a painter, Henner, who was extremely popular in this neighborhood and in the 19th century. The museum, of course, is closed right now because of the lockdown, like most all of the museums in Paris and in France. But I thought I would start my walk here because it's really next to the place where we went last time. And also because this museum, where Henner himself never lived, is an example of the type of homes that some affluent artists and other members of French society, Parisian society, would live in the 19th century, especially in the second half of the 19th century, and a time known as the Belle Époque. So the museum was renovated in 2016, and I cannot wait to return. I haven't been back in many years, but I understand that part of it is also dedicated to this great neighborhood that we started exploring last week, La Plaine Monceau, this part of Paris that was really pastoral for a long time, but then during the Second Empire, Napoleon III and Haussmann, with the help of some real estate developers, financiers, investors, entrepreneurs like the Perret brothers, acquired a lot of property around here and basically turned this area into one of the most affluent residential neighborhoods in Paris. Last week, if you recall, we were on that square over there, La Place Quatre. We talked about a French dynasty, the Dumas family. We talked about some of the people who lived around the area. And today, see, I didn't go very far. And my apartment, bonjour, ça va? I didn't go very far. Today, I am taking you into a street. The sun is about to set, and so it's challenging me right now. But the street I'm taking you to is called La Rue Fortuny. Let's see, there is a plaque here I can show you. I know some of you enjoy following the walks. Rue Fortuny, I'm sorry, not Fortuny, Fortuny. Fortuny, F-O-R-T-U-N-E, N-Y, F-O-R-T-U-N-Y. So this street is like an open-air museum. It's not very long. And what I'm going to do, you see the end of it, in fact, from here. What I'm going to do is tell you a few stories about the people who lived here. Bonjour et bienvenue. I see your messages scrolling by. I am going to focus this time on women a little bit more than men. I thought it'd be only fair, right? Because 19th century Paris, there were a lot of important women. And when we talk about the Belle Époque, let's just say the Belle Époque was not always beautiful for everyone. And we will talk today about what some women had to do to survive and thrive in this Parisian society in the 19th century. We are very lucky because the sun has come out, and thanks to the sun we are going to be able to enjoy some of the architecture. The first house I'd like you to look at is this one. You remember how we talked about the 19th century and how a lot of affluent people really enjoyed going back into the past when they had their houses built and designed, going back to the medieval style, going back to the neo-Renaissance style or neo-Gothic style. So they had a lot of money and they could afford to be a little bit eccentric and to create living environments that stood the test of time, but that are very interesting to look at today. So here is, in fact, if you look at the street ahead of us down there, this is the section of the street where the first houses were built, and as you walk your way towards the end of the street, the latest ones are there. But this first one was built in 1876, and it wasn't built the way it looks today in 1876. It's changed a lot. But if you look at the corner, you see this modern building, all concrete. This building was in fact part of that house, because that house was a hôtel particulier or private mansion, and it wrapped around the corner. And it was built in 1876 when the street was built, at the beginning of the street, when the Pereire brothers bought the property from a painter who owned it. They created this house. This house was built for a lady I know you have heard about. So, what is going on there? Okay. I thought today I would show you some photos as we go around, because I think it's nice when you hear stories to be able to put a face on a name. And I thought it would be good to... oh, my mom's watching. Bonjour, maman. So, let's look at this. Let's see. I'm going to do this. Now, you probably recognize this lady if you have been to the museum known as the Petit Palais at the bottom of the Champs-Élysées. This is the famed great actress known as Sarah Bernhardt. Remember we mentioned her on the previous stroll when we saw her statue outside the Palais Gaillard or the Hôtel Gaillard? Sarah Bernhardt was in her 30s and starting to be a really popular actress when she had this house built right here. This portrait that you see, if you've seen it in person at the Petit Palais, is gigantic. And the good thing about it is, whoops, it's turning with me, interesting, artisanal as always. This portrait was a big, big portrait. And when Sarah lived in this house, it sat on a wall, really high up on the wall, so that it towered over her and her guests when they came in. Now, I don't know how much you know about Sarah Bernhardt. I talked about her. There's a lot you could say. And so many people love her, remember her, and get quite enthusiastic talking about her. But Sarah Bernhardt revolutionized a lot of things here in Parisian society when she was introduced, when she became famous here. Do you see this? Yeah, I think you can see that. This is an Alphonse Mucha poster. Do you know Alphonse Mucha, this artist, this poster artist, illustrator, who became hugely famous at the end of the 19th century and one of the representatives of the Art Nouveau style? The Art Nouveau style, which was very short-lived, really, about 15 years before World War I, was focused on women, beautiful curves, beautiful flowers, nature. And Mucha was unknown when he came to Paris. And he met Sarah Bernhardt, who was in desperate need of some advertising for one of her plays, the plays that she was in that wasn't doing very well. He had 48 hours to create a poster, and he did. And that poster was shown all over Paris. And when Sarah saw it, she fell in love. And she said, "You are the man, you are a genius, you are going to work with me." And she signed him on a contract for 6 years. And for 6 years, Mucha designed a lot of posters for Sarah to advertise her plays. He also worked on some sets for her, as well as costumes. So let's show you her face. Now, a lot of the women, not easy to do with one hand, I'm telling you. Here is Sarah when she was quite young. The only thing this photo fails at showing is her beautiful red hair. Sarah had a mane of untamable hair. It was red. Like a lot of the women who became successful in the 19th century in Paris, she had a pretty rough beginnings in life. Her mother was what is known as a courtesan, and she sent her away. Sarah was in the way. She had brothers and sisters. She was never the favorite. Sarah was not really beautiful. She was not what beautiful women looked like in the 19th century. She was kind of petite and she was very thin to the point of being skinny. But she had beautiful blue eyes, that mane of red hair, and they quickly found out she was talented. Like many women of that time, she started her career and her life by, I would call her a courtesan, by sleeping with men, especially older men, who could help her go up in society and turn into the actress that she became. Some of them did that throughout their careers. Sarah did that at the beginning, and then she only slept with men she loved. And let me tell you, there were a lot of them. So, Sarah, picture her in this house. The house looks nothing like the hôtel particuliers she had built. The reason is, she sold it after 11 years. She was broke at some point in time. She spent a lot of money. And she sold it, and when it was purchased at the turn of the century in the 1890s, they did it in this style. But if you want to see what it looked like when it stood around the corner, go Google Sarah Bernhardt home, and you will find a couple of illustrations of what the beautiful Hotel Particulier looked like. Sarah was known for her acting skills. She was mesmerizing on stage. She was intense. Look at that gaze. Look at her hair. Look at the beautiful costume and jewelry she wears. And this was one of her most famous parts, but she played all the roles in the classic repertoire. What was amazing with Sarah is that she had really strong presence on stage. She had long arms, beautiful hands. She had that gaze, that stare. And she was really good at dying on stage. So people came to see Sarah Bernhardt die on stage. That's what she was really good at. And let's see, I think I have another one. I don't know if I'll be able to show it to you, but I'm going to try. She could play male and female parts. There she is in a male part. This is a role that Edmond Rostand, a famous playwright who lived on the street, we will talk about him a little later, created for her. It was called L'Aiglon, the eaglet, and it told the story of Napoleon I's son, known as the King of Rome, who would have ruled as Napoleon II but never did and died very young. And in that long, tragic play, Sarah got to do what she did best. She died magnificently at the end. So definitely one of her strongest roles. If you had known Sarah when she wasn't acting, you would have been shocked at her eccentricity, her scandalous way of life, the fact that she didn't care if she shocked people. And so when she lived in this house, there was this big portrait I just showed you. There was also some beautiful, beautiful glass work that had been done by an artist named Poncin. And she called on her favorite artists to design the house, to decorate it. It was really lavish and exotic inside. When she traveled around, she traveled with a real menagerie. Not only did she love dogs, greyhounds were her favorite. She also had a Jack Russell, but she also had a collection of wild animals, lions. She had lions, baby lions, some cubs at some point. She had alligators, and all sorts of stories go around about Sarah and her animals and how she traveled with them around the world. She was, picture Sarah Bernhardt. People said at the end of the 19th century, foreign visitors came to Paris to see two landmarks, the Eiffel Tower and Sarah Bernhardt. And when she traveled on all 5 continents, acting on stage, in French exclusively, people flocked to see her and paid huge amounts of money to see Sarah Bernhardt. Picture Sarah Bernhardt traveling on a train, a special train across the United States, making it to the far west, and playing for cowboys and Native Americans who had no idea what she was saying, but were just trying to get in and get tickets to see the famous French actress. And the same thing happened all around the world. So she had a lot of money problems because she spent a lot. She kept this house for 11 years, sold it, and moved then to a different neighborhood in the 17th arrondissement. So she stayed in the 17th, and she died in her 80s. A long life, long career. She had some serious health issues, but that never stopped her from coming on stage and performing, even if she couldn't move around as much as she wanted. There's a lot more I can tell you about Sarah Bernhardt, but I won't for now because I'm working on a little project that involves her, and I would like to save some of those stories for later. But let's just get closer and see what the owners of that house did. You can see the style. So she was the first lady of the 19th century I wanted to feature on this walk. Back to the 20th century. Here's another nice house, also built at that time, Rue Fortuny. The brick and the stone, very elegant. I say back to the 20th century because a former French president was born in this house and lived here until he was 18. His name was Nicolas Sarkozy. So he's probably the most famous person who lived in that house. I'm continuing the walk. The sun is setting over there. Going to take you to, let's see, if I stop you'll be able to see them better. So all of them are interesting. Not all of them are grand or grandiose, depending on who had them built, what their taste was. But picture the bourgeoisie in this neighborhood in the 19th century, the affluent crowd, the industrialists, the bankers. Picture also all the wealthy artists. We mentioned them. They had their workshops around here. And so every week there were parties for everyone. Every week people would come here and they would, one night they would go to this house and one night they would go to that house. Fridays were usually reserved for artists and their parties. So on Fridays, they would entertain in their workshops. And in fact, Sarah Bernhardt was also a talented sculptor. And she would welcome people in her atelier, her workshop in the house we just saw. And you would know how popular an artist was based on the number of carriages lined up outside. I think I'm going to go to, let's see. I'll go this way. Okay, this one is beautiful. Look at this one. Bow windows. Bow windows were a big thing in the 19th century, especially the late 19th century. So a lot of the houses you will see have bow windows like this. Oh, I forgot to show you the Poncin home. Okay, I'm going to walk back. Not to worry, it's right here. Now, I told you Sarah worked with the best artisans, the best craftsmen to decorate her house. One of them was a master glass artist named Poncin. He did 2 giant windows or glass works representing Sarah in some of her leading roles, and he did that inside that house. And she must have paid him very well because he had enough money to have this house built for himself. Would be a shame to miss it, wouldn't it? Look at that. Master glass artist named Poncin. So like many buildings in the street today, lots of offices, law offices, insurance companies. You can see the windows have been somewhat modernized, but picture this house when Poncin lived in it at the end of the 19th century. Do you see where the 2 giant statues are? The caryatids. They used to frame a beautiful glass window, stained glass window he had designed. It was so beautiful that it won an award at the World Fair in 1878. So some of the house, some of the beauty of the house is left. You can still see it. Bonjour. So imagine that. So when I say we had affluent artists living around here, we did. Those were not the impoverished artists who lived in Montmartre. Those were a different type of artists. And they mingled, they rubbed shoulders with, you know, all this, the bourgeoisie, the local bourgeoisie. And these women, like Sarah Bernhardt, who started as, we call them courtesans. Some of them call them cocottes. Les cocottes. Les cocottes. Cocotte comes from la poule. La poule is slang for a prostitute. It means a hen originally. But les cocottes, les courtisanes, they ruled that society at the end of the 19th century. And they had a few things they could rely on to make their mark and succeed. Their beauty, if they were beautiful, their talent as well, their ambition, and all they needed to do was to meet a few affluent men in this neighborhood. And because it was perfectly accepted for a married gentleman to have 1 or 2 or 3 cocottes and to show them off publicly, then these cocottes really could achieve not only stardom, but also material wealth. So, are you ready to hear a couple more stories? I'm going to show you this house. Not easy to show. And I'm not very straight here. And the one next to it. You see those? Okay, so 2 cocottes or courtesans, who were more than that, as a matter of fact, lived here. Right around 1900. So by then, Sarah Bernhardt had left the neighborhood, and different people lived, took possession of those homes. This one is by Adolphe Viel, V-I-E-L, architect, 1879. His name is on the facade because that's something they did in the 19th century. They put their names on the facades, they were proud of them, and they signed in the date as well. So this house I really like because it's the most colorful one in the street, and it features a lot of the ceramic work that you could find at the end of the 19th century, early 20th, as part of the Art Nouveau and the style that people like. Do you see this beautiful ceramic work? And it really stands out against the brick, so it's really pretty. So who lived here? Well, let's see. I won't get run over. A lady named Catherine Otéro, or known as La Belle Otéro, lived here. And she is back at her house with us today. There she is, La Belle Otéro, the beautiful Otéro, O-T-E-R-O. This courtesan was also a talented dancer. Her story is actually very sad. She came from Spain originally, and she was raped when she was 10 years old, became a prostitute before she was 20, and just had a very rough start in life. Made her way north through Monaco, where she found out she enjoyed gambling. Made her way to Paris, where she arrived in 1889 at the same time as the Eiffel Tower. She was a very talented dancer, very exotic. Look at that gaze, look at those eyes. Her mom was a gypsy. Beautiful body, her legs were famous. Her jewelry was as famous as she was. And she quickly became a very renowned dancer at the Folies Bergère and other places in Paris, in France, and also very quickly internationally. Like many courtesans, she followed a trend that Sarah Bernhardt had launched, which was to have her picture taken by talented photographers and turned into postcards that could be sent to admirers, and then it was like early marketing, basically. So a lot of the photos you find of these courtesans or cocottes will be postcards like this one. So Otéro revealed in her memoirs that she hated men because of what had happened to her when she was a kid, and she spent the rest of her life using men, sleeping with them certainly, but for money. And she, let me tell you, the list of the men she slept with, a lot of them were extremely famous, kings and princes, including Edward VII, who was a big fan of Paris and became the King of England. We had a lot of the King of Belgium, and she had little notebooks where she kind of rated them, their performance with her, how good they were, how bad, and so forth. And of course, they paid her with a lot of money and jewelry. She had an extensive collection. La Belle Otéro was a fascinating character because what she did is when she was around right after World War I, she was 46. She decided that she was getting too old for dancing and for being a courtesan. She could tell her looks wouldn't last forever, and she chose to leave at the peak of her beauty. And she moved to southern France, where she had found out about gambling years before, and she became a compulsive gambler and basically gambled away. I'm going to show you the house for a change. Basically gambled away all the fortune she had created here in Paris with the famous men that she had slept with. It is estimated that she spent over 100 million euros very quickly by gambling it away. She made more money in southern France and she did it again. She gambled it all away. And the end of her life is really sad. She died at 98 years old. And by then she had moved to Nice, a very old lady, completely forgotten, small hotel by the train station. Nobody knew where she was, or who she was, sorry. And if you look her up on YouTube, you can find old documentaries showing you the old Belle Otéro. Nothing was left of her looks, of course. And she died completely forgotten, completely isolated. So a very interesting life, but very typical of the fact that La Belle Époque was not always beautiful for everyone, because she had a pretty rough start in life and made the most of it and spent it all away, just squandered all the money she had made. At about the same time, right next door, lived another courtesan, a very different type of lady, though same beginnings in life. In fact, I believe her mother owned a brothel, so she was no stranger at an early age, of life. She knew life. So there she is. She had a very long, complicated name, but she was known as Geneviève Lantelme. Look at Geneviève. Geneviève was incredible. Geneviève was one of the most beautiful women of the 19th century in Europe. That's what they said at the time. And she lived in the house right next to La Belle Otéro for a few years when she was very young, 17 or 18. That tells you she had already found wealthy friends to support her. Geneviève is interesting in the sense that she was beautiful and she decided to make a career for herself in the theater. And she took it very seriously. She went to very good school. She did the Conservatoire, which is a prestigious school. And she was also one of the earliest fashion icons. Do you see this big hat she's wearing? Those were really big until Coco Chanel rolled in with her simplistic line or simple lines. But today we would say she attended all the fashion shows. So she got international fame very quickly as well. Yeah, she was beautiful, wasn't she? Now, for her legend to become complete, our socialite / fashion icon / courtesan / stage actress was on a cruise with her husband. She lived with a married man for a very long time who ended up marrying her, but she didn't love him as much as she thought, I guess. When they were on a cruise on the Rhine River, she drowned accidentally, and the police investigated and they said it was an accident. Some people didn't agree with that, and she was buried at the Père Lachaise with all of her jewelry. She was about to leave her husband, apparently, so that's why a lot of people questioned the fact that it was an accident. But Geneviève Lantelme died at 28 years old. And when you die at 28 years old and you are remembered in all of your glory like this, of course you'll become a legend. Geneviève Lantelme. And for a few years, she lived right here. In this beautiful home, you can see the different styles. This one is not quite as flashy as the other ones, but if you're only 18 years old when you live here. So keep in mind, all these women had rough lives. I could have told you more about Sarah Bernhardt, but they all had very rough starts in life and made the best of, their looks, their talents, because some of them are quite talented, dancers, actors, actresses, and so forth. So let's see, if I cross here, so some of the buildings are just a little different, more 19th century, what you see usually. You see a lot of stone though. Sun, I'm losing the sun. Live stream walks in the fall and winter, chasing daylight. I cannot read your comments right now, so I hope you forgive me. I am headed for number 12. Just a quick little hello. For those of you who don't know me, bonjour. My name is Véronique Véro. I am a Paris-based tour guide, travel blogger, French language instructor, and I share Paris and France every day in social media, on the occasional live stream walk. If you want to see more of these walks, the replays, everything is on YouTube. And you can find me here, on Facebook every day, where I share information. So, let's see. How about we talk about, sorry about the face mask, number 12. You see this door under this giant scaffolding? I won't even go all the way up. Silly. Behind this, I don't know if you see the number, but behind this door is number 12. We now had to talk about a guy in the 21st century. Raise your hand if you know Pierre Hermé. Pierre Hermé, the pastry chef. The man who in 2016 was voted the world's best pastry chef. He's also known as the king of the macaron because he's revolutionized French macaron by inventing new flavors. He likes to say he creates his pastries as fashion. They're as beautiful as they taste. And you'll never guess, but everything you've ever tasted, this is actually a beautiful building. It's a shame we can't see it. You can kind of see behind the scaffolding, but anyway, Pierre Hermé, everything he creates, all the new pastries he creates, all the new flavors are created here. This is his atelier de création, his workshop. It's very nondescript, but he's been here for several years now, and he can be seen around the neighborhood. Though I haven't bumped into him yet, but I'm hoping I will eventually. Here's the other end of Rue Fortuny. Now we get to enjoy it with the sun behind us. It's a little bit nice. So Sarah Bernhardt's home is on that side. We started up at the beginning. Of course you love macaron. Who doesn't love macaron? And he is another one. I like this one. It's a little bit more humble. So here's a new home for you to look at. Not very straight, my apologies. So this home, there's a plaque. You see the plaque? Let's go see the plaque. Somebody you probably know lived here. A man. Marcel Pagnol de l'Académie française a vécu dans cette maison, lived in this house, between 1933 and 1950. Now, of course, you know more. If you live in France, you obviously know Marcel Pagnol. Very versatile, very prolific, talented creator who wrote novels, who filmed a lot of movies, and lived in this neighborhood through the 30s and 40s before he moved on to a different section of Paris, and used this house as his home and his movie production company. Some of the names or works you've probably heard by Marcel Pagnol are his novel based on his childhood memories called My Father's Glory or My Mother's Castle. You also know maybe the trilogy. Some of the two of the books in the trilogy are known as Jean de Florette and Manon of the Springs. So this is Marcel Pagnol here. Beautiful. Now check this one out. This is one of the most incredible former hôtel particuliers or private mansions in the street, I think. It's called the Fortuny Hotel. So it's named like the street or after the street. And it's a mix of styles. Whoever had that built right around the 1880s loved the past. You can see some of the medieval style here. You can see some of the Renaissance. You can see the beautiful ceramic work that was done by a major artist at the time. Just all the accents. And let's not forget the bow window. Look at the intricate work on this bow window. Isn't that amazing? So this building belonged to several people, obviously, since the 19th century. For a while, you're going to be shocked, but for a while, it was a vocational high school that trained future beauticians. And it belongs to the Île-de-France, the region of Île-de-France. And then after that, after the school closed in 2010, they rented it out to a movie production company for a while. And then a couple of years ago, they decided to sell it. And I'm not sure what's going to become of it. It's empty right now. They were talking, I read an article where they were talking about turning it into a co-working space, maybe. So the Hôtel Fortuny I think one of the most lavish ones, now that Sarah Bernhardt's home is gone, or partly gone, this is definitely one of the most impressive ones here. I'm trying to show it to you. My machine here is not cooperating. There we go. Finally. Eee. What else can I show you? A couple more? A couple more. Thank you for being here today and for joining me. I cannot read your comments as I walk because I'm watching other things, but I usually go back to them afterwards and answer as many questions as I can. So forgive me, I'm not trying to ignore you. Bonjour, bonjour, if you're just joining us. I like this one. Now remember the beautiful home we saw at the other end of the street that was built for the master glass artist, Poncin? The same architect built this one. This one is really interesting because the lady who commissioned it around the same time, 1880s, this lady clearly was in love with the Middle Ages, because even though the house, the colors are very pale compared to the other homes we've seen, you can see the half-timbered look. You see where the wood used to be and it's been painted over, but you can see a lot of details. Okay, left and right, trying not to get run over. Look at the little characters looking down at us. Some of them are smiling. And look at the columns, the friezes. Look at the, oh, oop, sorry. Didn't like what I did, I guess. Not easy to show you the facades if I'm really close, so I'll step back like that without falling. There's construction in the street, so I have to walk around fences. Now, better. I'm glad you're enjoying the walk, thank you. Yeah, I took a little bit of time to prepare it this time because I wanted to tell you all the good stories, and I'm not even telling all of them, but I focused on some of the ladies. I thought that would be very interesting after last week. Here, let's go see these guys in the corner before we go on. So the lady who commissioned this house also owned a couple more at the end of the street where we're headed. Look at these guys. Fun, huh? So this style was actually called the Troubadour Style, which I love. They called it the Troubadour Style. This massive hôtel particulier, private mansion, so massive it doesn't fit in my screen, has been here forever as well. And it's belonged for decades to the ambassador of Iran. I understand it's a beautiful building inside. They have lavish receptions, or used to, in there. So, even though a lot of them are offices, like I was saying, law offices, insurance companies, there's still embassies and more construction on the side here, so I cannot stand there. Got to be creative in Paris when you're walking. Here we have reached the end of our street, La Rue Fortuny, you see the sign. And this house here has also a, let me show you the top of this house. Bzz. Okay, there's a plaque as well here. And this plaque tells you that Edmond Rostand, playwright Edmond Rostand, lived here for 6 years from 1891 through 1897. And it says he wrote Cyrano de Bergerac. Cyrano de Bergerac. I know you know Cyrano. Cyrano is a star worldwide, just like Sarah Bernhardt. One of the most endearing characters. I'm not going to say fictional characters, because like D'Artagnan, Cyrano de Bergerac actually existed. He was a musketeer. He was very different, though, from the character that Rostand portrayed in many ways, but he did exist. There was a Cyrano de Bergerac. So Rostand, the playwright, interestingly, moved here after Sarah Bernhardt, who lived at the very end on the left, moved away, and he still wrote for her one of her favorite roles, which was L'Aiglon. I told you about it. L'Aiglon, the life of Napoleon's son. And so there was a connection. You know, I love those connections. There was a connection between Sarah, who lived in the street, Sarah Bernhardt, and Edmond Rostand. Merci, monsieur. Somebody actually stopped for me. I am shocked. shocked. All right, so we are finished for now with La Rue Fortuny. I still have a little time if you have a little time too. And I could not leave this neighborhood without showing you, without telling you the story of the lady who remains today even more famous than Sarah Bernhardt. And she was born in this neighborhood. Now check out these two beautiful hôtel particuliers, private mansions. I like to think that Sarah's hôtel particulier at the corner of Rue Fortuny over there in the 1870s looked exactly like that, because I've seen an illustration and it was very similar. The one on the right here belonged to a very interesting gentleman, and I am not going to tell you his story today because I might mention him later. And look at this one, much more recent, clearly. A lot of buildings around here were added in the 20s and 30s, so more in the Art Deco style. Different types of lines. Mix and match here in the 17th arrondissement. A lot of the 19th century is still here, but occasionally you'll see more of the 1920s, 1930s. In the distance over here, this building you probably recognize because I've taken you there and you've been there yourself. This is the Parc Monceau, the entrance of the beautiful Parc Monceau. La Rotonde. La Rotonde Monceau is the name of that building. The light is quite nice, isn't it? So embassies, you see those flags over there? You do have quite a few embassies in the 17th arrondissement and in other arrondissements as well. So here we are. We are entering a new street. And this walk should wrap up in about 10 minutes. If you want to stay with me a little longer. This is the Rue de Chazelle. As I was saying, a famous lady was born here in the street. And you may have recognized the name already. Now I've got to warn you, nothing is left, except for a plaque, nothing is left to remind us that she was once here. But let me tell you, in the late 19th century through the 1880s, after she was born, she became a huge tourist attraction for Parisians who came to see her and paid to see her. And her name, in case you haven't figured it out yet, was Miss Liberty, la Statue de la Liberté, a gift of France to the United States that was meant originally to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the American independence. Was delivered about 10 years too late, but still became a tribute, a token of the friendship between France and the United States. And so the statue was born right here, Rue de Chazelle, like I said. Today we have newer buildings from the 1980s on the right. But picture this, as early as 1865, a French politician and his friend, who was a sculptor from Alsace named Bartholdi, decided to create a beautiful statue. It was a bit of a jab towards Napoleon III. It was the end of the Second Empire. Napoleon III had taken a lot of individual liberties from the French. And these guys decided to build a statue that would represent liberty lighting the world. So the French government refused to have anything to do with it and to pay for it, and said, fine, make sure you pay for it. And they did. They very creatively raised funds to build the statue. And the United States found a suitable spot on an island in the harbor of New York and agreed to build the part where the statue would stand. I don't know what you call this. The base, I guess, the base of the statue. And so Bartholdi started working on this big project. But from a technical standpoint, he met some issues. And originally, because because the harbor of New York is very windy. So he needed a structure that would be very strong. So he asked a very famous architect at the time, Eugène Viollet-le-Duc. You've heard his name because he's worked on he renovated, restored so many landmarks in Paris and in France, including Notre Dame de Paris. But he was old and he died before he could complete the project. So Bartholdi approached another well-known architect who had not yet invented or created the landmark that would forever outshine him. And his name was Gustave Eiffel. And thanks to Gustave Eiffel, who designed the metallic frame of the Statue of Liberty could be built in this neighborhood. And it took about 6 or 7 years. They started in the 1870s. It was completed in 1884. In fact, if we could magically take out this building built in the 1980s, we could see kind of a recessed area here with what at the time was one of the most famous foundries in Paris. It belonged to Gaget and Gautier, two businessmen who had been known to restore a lot of work. They worked with copper. They were copper specialists. And so they started building the statue here in their foundry, and they also leased out a lot of property, a lot of land next to it because of the size of the project. It was massive. And so the statue started growing up. At some point it towered about 150 feet above these buildings. You could see it almost from the boulevard next door where we will wrap up this walk. So Parisians came. It was a major attraction. And to raise funds, as soon as major parts were completed, they invited people to come and see it and pay money. For example, the head was displayed at the 1878 World Fair. People paid to see the head of the Statue of Liberty, and that's how they financed it. So of course, like I said, nothing remains today. There is a plaque. Where is the plaque? Oh, right there. Let's cross the street ever so carefully. Voila. So the plaque is here, and it tells you the story of the statue. And there's only, so number 25 is where it happens, so this section roughly. There's only one thing that reminds you, with the exception of this plaque, what happened here. It is a private clinic that's here today. And the sign for this private clinic, look who's on the sign. You see? Just so we don't forget that Miss Liberty was born here. Now, taking her to New York was quite an adventure. They took her apart, disassembled her after she was completed in 1884. I think it was 200 something crates. Some of them just rivets and bolts. And because we are close to the Gare Saint-Lazare, they loaded up all the crates on a train. The train went to Rouen, the city of Rouen, R-O-U-E-N, and it was right on the Seine River. They put all the crates on a ship. The ship sailed the Seine River all the way to Le Havre. And from there, it was able to cross the Atlantic Ocean, which of course took a while. By June of 1885, the Statue of Liberty arrived in New York City, where the base was waiting, and it took about 4 months to reassemble the statue and introduce her to New York. And the official inauguration was in the fall of 1886, so 10 years after they had planned to complete the project, 110 years after the American independence was celebrated. And I'm about to show you a picture that I really like, the last one I'll be showing you today, so you can picture the scene like it was here in the late 1880s. If I can find it, there she is. Let's see, look at this beautiful building. Lots of beautiful architecture here. We are on the boulevard de Courcelles. So look, I am going to show you a picture, and I'm going to stand exactly where the photographer stood. So this is the building where the section where the statue was erected, and I'm sure you've all seen this photo. This is exactly the spot where this photo was taken, and you can see the statue emerging, Miss Liberty emerging above the buildings, towering over the neighborhood, becoming one of the major attractions in this part of Paris. You see? Tuck, now, and then same street. And the street is called Alfred de Vigny. That's where I'm standing. Isn't that cool to think we can do this? Too bad nothing is left. But she has a good spot now, so we're very happy for her. And we know you're taking really good care of her. And let's see, Rue Alfred de Vigny is where I was. There we go. So, a few more minutes and then I'll be saying goodbye. I hope you've enjoyed this walk today and the stories, or this stroll as I like to say, and the stories I told. As always, tips are gratefully accepted by this tour guide in her virtual tip jar on Venmo or PayPal, and the information will be in the video notes. And I think I'll give you a little treat to wrap up in style, because right here is the Parc Monceau. I don't want to make it a habit to always wrap up at the Parc Monceau like last week, but why not? We'll do a little bit different, something a little bit different maybe today. Ah, young lady following daddy on a bicycle. Here we go. And we are walking towards the entrance. I think we had a little bit of a glitch with the cell coverage, but it's back on now. Hope you're still here. So if you'd like to take a peek at the Parc Monceau, stay with me for a few more minutes. Look at the... I can see the connection, so I'll walk fast. For those of you wondering about the French lockdown, it's been theaters. Parks are open, but that's about it. And you would be able to go out for just 1 hour a day. And we are back. I stopped mid-sentence when I saw there was a bad connection. Right, as I was saying, if you were in Paris right now, it would not be the Paris you are used to seeing. You would not be able to enjoy it as much. So don't be too sad, you'll come back when it's back in operation. Hopefully in a few months. I am right here at the entrance, very close, along the Boulevard de Courcelles. I hope you've enjoyed exploring the beautiful neighborhood part of the 17th arrondissement known as la Plaine Monceau during this walk, and also the previous walk. If you haven't seen the first one, you need to get back to YouTube and check it out so you get the whole story. I also did a walk inside the Parc Monceau in this neighborhood, and I'm planning to do a few more in the next few weeks. There's a lot to tell in the 17th arrondissement. If you dig up the stories and research a little bit, a lot happened here in a non-touristy part of Paris. Ah, the police is here. Looks familiar, right? If they stop me, don't go anywhere. I'll try and wrap up quickly. I was able to stay away. I mean, look at all the people. This is crazy. You would have never seen this during the first confinement. Guess that's why the police is here. Making sure people have filled in their permission slips before they go out. Or maybe they've just given up and said, what the heck, just let them have a good time and get some fresh air and eat a crepe. Here is the Chalet Monceau, where we wrapped up last week, where I ordered a crepe, and you can see they're always popular with grown-ups and kids. Look at the line. Good thing I didn't plan to buy a crepe today, huh? Wow. All right, I'll wrap up by the little bridge. How about that? Look at that. This is so pretty. Parc Monceau magic right here. The gentleman facing us is Guy de Maupassant, author Guy de Maupassant. Many artists are honored in this neighborhood. Street names, statues, and now you understand why more, because there just were so many in this area. Here's a nice view from here. Lots of people. I did not expect to find that many people. Wow. The swings are still closed. And we are on that cute little bridge. Bonjour.
Tu dis bonjour.
Bonjour.
Hugo, qu'est-ce que tu veux? La poussette? Faut d'abord descendre.
You get a little bit of a Parisian sunset there in the distance. We are standing on that cute little bridge in the Parc Monceau. You can see Parisians at play, somewhat, in spite of everything. It's going to be time for me to say goodbye. I'll turn around so you can see the background behind me, more interesting. Like, how about this? Like this? I want to say thank you for joining me today on this stroll in La Plaine Monceau, the second part of the stroll really. I hope you've enjoyed hearing those stories. I'm going to probably revisit some of these stories in a project I have coming up. I love telling stories, as you know, and I hope you join me then at that point. If you'd like to support this project and enable me to continue sharing content like this in social media practically every day, I would urge you to check out the club, the Friends with Vero Club. My club members get spoiled horribly. They can confirm that if they're watching now, with content, live events. In fact, we are meeting tomorrow for a monthly event on Zoom called Conversations with Vero, and we will be discussing a topic they chose, which is favorite day trips outside Paris. So they'll be exchanging tips and travel tips and favorite places. We're doing that on Sunday. There's still time to join us if you join the club. So look me up on Patreon at patreon.com/French Girl in Seattle. That also will be in the notes for the video, so you can find it easily. Thank you as always for your support. Share this walk if you enjoyed it. Facebook will upload it very quickly and it'll be available as replay. So let me give you one last peek at the gorgeous Parc Monceau. Voila, little bit of Parisian magic on a fall evening. It's getting dark soon. I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving next week if you are in the United States or abroad for that matter. Happy Thanksgiving to my American friends. And I will see you in a few days, as soon as I can. À bientôt!